So what I've been doing, man, I've been telling our people the last few weeks, like I have been actively having to go back to my first love. I've been having to weed out and re-fertilize this garden for where it was bearing much fruit. And I had to get rid of some things that were choking me out. And I had to find the place that I had last seen him. And this is not some hard thing to do. In fact, Jesus makes it very easy. He says in the scripture, if you seek me with your whole heart, you will find me. When Mary was at the tomb and Mary couldn't see Jesus, he wasn't there, the angel said, who are you looking for? I'm looking for Jesus. He's not here. Well, where'd you take him? And then a voice from behind her goes, who is it that you seek? And she perceived him to be a gardener. This is a man that pulled her out of her junk and she walked with and saw the miraculous for 3.5 years. This man that she so loved, that no one else loved her like he did, he spoke to her and she didn't even recognize him. Perceiving he was a gardener, she said, do you know where they had taken him? Please tell me, I'll take him back. And then he does something. He called her by her name. He did something that took her back to where she last knew him, where he said, Mary. Y'all remember the other story? There's the 2 disciples that are walking, and this man shows up, and they didn't know who he was. And so they start talking to him because he asked questions. What are y'all talking about? What are y'all doing? It's Jesus. And they start telling Jesus about himself. And they start trying to explain to Jesus what had just happened to Jesus. And he's just walking with them, totally letting it happen. The same way that we tend to forget that he's near, and we're talking about him to him, not knowing he's right there. And then all of a sudden something happens. Oh, are you cold? He's not in the fire line. He's way back here. All of a sudden, something happens to these 2 disciples. Now, here's the deal. These 2 disciples, their names are not names that are very common. I think one was Cleopas, but they're not like the common names. And so that caught my attention reading the story. Like, okay, here's these 2 disciples. They're talking about these 2 other women that met you, or that saw the grave was empty, and they're very confused. And you're walking with them and you're talking to them, and they don't even recognize you. What's the deal? And then he does this thing. He sits with them and he breaks bread. And it clicked. The last thing they did with Jesus was sit in the upper room and break bread. He took them back to the place that they last saw him. The disciples bailed, dude. Like, whenever he got arrested, they bolted. The last place they knew him was at the table breaking bread. So what he does is he goes to his friends that loved him, that took their eyes off of him, that stopped seeking him, that stopped following him, that got distracted and choked out by the world. He went to them and he says, hey, I'm going to redeem you. Here's how. We're going to go back to the place that you left me. And we're going to do what we did so that you remember who I am. That's powerful.